All right, welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Leak, joined as always with the man Turner, Uncle T, and today we have a special guest. His name is John Walker. John has worked in remote production in the sports world as a video editor and a replay producer. He's worked for a ton of the major sports networks, including ESPN, Turner Sports, HBO, CBS, you name it, he's worked there. And we are extremely happy and excited to have him on. So, John, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll start. I mean, you told me you're from San Antonio. I know you went to UIW. Did you grow up a sports fan? Were you a sports kid growing up or not really?
I don't know that I can really say that I was a sports fan. There are things that I've enjoyed that I came up around. I mean, football is an institution in Texas. It's kind of hard not to be a fan of football.
Right.
But I'm not a rabid fan where I live and breathe that stuff all day long.
Right. Did you play in high school or anything growing up, football?
Actually, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
The opportunity just didn't present itself for me, and I probably wasn't the most athletic student that there was.
Yeah, I hear you. Did you, but were you interested in like film and cameras and stuff?
I was always interested in film and production. I didn't see live TV as a medium at the time. Film production, looking at independent films, studying how older films were put together, which I still do to this day.
Yeah.
I think there's a really fascinating thing about going back and looking to see how people came up with creative solutions to problems using mechanics or their wits, as opposed to everything is digital now. We have the ability to do CGI, to AI is coming in and take over a lot of stuff now too. But I think that takes away from a lot of the real creativity of it. I see just going on YouTube or Instagram here and there, and you see some of the younger kids that are doing things now. I think they're brilliant. I mean, there's a lot of junk, but there are people out there that are extremely creative.
Yeah.
And they should be recognized, and I'd like to see them do more.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And so did you study, when you were in college, did you start studying like film and like what'd you major in?
Well, my major is communications, which
okay.
is my degree is in, and then my undergrad being English Lit.
Yeah.
Which I guess it did help me in a lot of ways, because it helped me in writing and helped being able to communicate things through there. I kind of came about a little bit different, though, because I didn't go to college immediately out of high school. There was a couple years that I thought I was going to do something else, and I won't go too deep into how my life's choices changed. But I basically got angry one day with the career that was not working out the way I thought it was going to be. And I know people have said never burn a bridge, but there's also a tactical retreat. Right. So I basically did burn it, so I never had the option of going back to force me into doing something else.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, I had a love of this stuff, so I thought maybe I will go back to college and do this.
Interesting.
Out of all and I know you said you're not a huge sports fan, but out of all the events that you've done production, what is your I don't know if favorite's the right word, but which one do you enjoy doing the most?
It's hard for me to say that there's actually really a favorite one, because while I say I'm not a huge sports fan, that doesn't mean when I'm not working it. When I'm involved in the process of putting a production on, I am into it. I am looking for things. In understanding and knowing how things work mechanically, but again, I've done it so many years now that you develop a sense of what's going to happen, and you can almost predict how this is going to unfold. Now, having said that, again, I was not that jazzed about sports. I had ideals about, again, becoming, like everybody has these ideals, I'm going to be the next great director, or I'm going to make this great film or whatever. In reality, it does tend to kind of take a bite out of that, especially when you have, things in life that you enjoy that are luxuries like food, clothing, and shelter. Yeah. You got to be able to put food on the table. And so I stepped into a situation that I realized, wow, live TV, really, there's a challenge there. You have to be able to function at a very high level of stress. You have to be able to multitask. You have to be able to, within the multitask environment, you still have to be able to hyper-focus on certain things and recognize there's a lot of management going on that you're doing. And over the years, it's also turned into IT management for me too, with all the digital medium. And maybe I'm getting a little too far off the question.
Well, I'm always blown away when they do, for example, like, Monday Night Football, and it's, whoever's doing the Tarico and whatever, and then it's like a look at the truck, and it's just all the different screens and all the different cameras, and it's to me it would just give me I definitely couldn't do it.
No, I'm curious how that works. How exactly you're cutting the stuff. Like I'm interested in that. I want to know.
Well, I'm going to try to be. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on this, but to give it kind of an overview of what's happening, you have a large TV truck, and depending upon the size of the production, you're talking Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
there's 4 or 5 units there. A small regional show, like let's say here in San Antonio, a Spurs basketball.
Right.
There's going to be 2 side by side. One's doing a show for the Spurs. One's doing a show for the opposing team that's visiting. And then there are times that you'll only have one, depending on how it works. College football, you only have one.
Right.
College basketball, you only have one. There are times even in the NBA that you'll have 3 or 4 units. It just depends on the size of the show.
Right.
But having go in there, in a nutshell, you have a technical director that's switching. You're going to have a graphics operator with a graphics coordinator.
Right.
You'll have what we call score box. That's always got the bug in the corners that's showing you the score and everything else. You have an audio 1 that's mixing the show. You have an audio 2 that's outside that's set up the mics, that's making sure everything's running okay for stand-up hits, for announcers and things like that. However many cameras, you have an operator for each one. You have, in a small show, 5 to 6 cameras. A couple of utilities that are there to work with the camera operators, especially handhelds. Somebody's got to be able to make sure their cables are free when they're moving fast. And then coming towards the back where I'm at, you have usually a minimum of 2, up to however many replay ops that are tied in and stuff. Then you have video that's shading cameras, and you'll have a senior and you have an assistant video working with him. And let me think on the top of my head, engineers in charge, which come with the truck that are packaged, because those things are all purchased from other companies. They're contracted out to bring this equipment in.
Right.
And that's all basically below the line people. Then your above the line people are your directors, your producers, your assistant directors that come in, and then you'll have your talent. Right.
That's so much stuff for one game.
And I probably just kind of blew through all that on you. But.
Right, but and I'm like, wow.
To think about one game, all that goes into one game is just crazy.
I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. And so, like, when you're doing I wrote this question. I was thinking about this. Like, I'm curious, legitimately, and if this is too technical an answer, tell me. No. But like, how you're watching the game, right? And you're going to put up a replay, correct? Mm-hmm. Right? How do you literally cut it that fast, know where to cut it, know how to put it, and then that's crazy to me, the pressure of having to do that.
Okay. And I know it seems difficult to you, and it can be at times. Again, it seems different to me because I've done it for so long, it's just kind of rote. The way the systems are now the Cadillac that is the standard in the industry for everybody to use is, our slang for it is called Elvis. And I don't even know who came up with that, where it came from to start with, because essentially, think about it as TiVo on steroids. You're digitally recording. The company that makes it is called EVS Broadcast Systems, and the actual unit that you're working on is called an LSM. Now, they have a lot of other items that incorporate into it.
Right.
But in all the TV trucks, the LSMs are networked together. So I'm recording everything that's coming in. I can turn it around one frame behind it coming in. I have the ability to reach into other people's machines, network, pull clips out of them, pull from their record trains while it's happening live, make a clip, and pull it to my box.
Wow.
Edit that together and turn that around. Generally, once the play is already over, even by the time it's starting to I can already be racking it back to have it ready to go. In terms of editing, like, say you're watching football or basketball or whatever, and you'll see a quick flash of a small animation. We call those interstitials that we tack on the front, and 2 or 3 quick plays, and then it'll come back to play. Whoever that operator is that's building that has done it in 20 to 30 seconds and flipped that right back around.
That's crazy. So when you, obviously now, right, like doing it for this long, that's probably very easy for you.
The mechanics of it, yes.
Right.
The part of it that is difficult for people to understand is we have routers which I can punch any camera independently and route that back into what I'm video. You can also reroute audio underneath it depending on what you're wanting to do. And there's a lot of other things that we do because you time slip things, and I'll get into that later. The difficult portion of it is for anyone, again, the mechanics, once you've learned it, you kind of understand it. The difficult portion is the clip management, because as video is coming in, you're covering the game and you might be replaying things, but you're taking clips of, here's my start point of the play, here's my end of the play. I'm putting that aside and I'm categorizing it and I'm assigning it things. So in basketball, I might be saying S25, meaning the player, San Antonio 25, and I've given him, it's LU, it's a layup, or he did a J, or he drove the lane, or whatever. These are my shorthands. Yeah. So while I'm doing that, I'm organizing all of this stuff, going down the line chronologically, but I'm making notes like, so we get, say, 5-6 minutes further in the game. Hey, so-and-so just went off. We need to do something to highlight. I need to know where all of those plays are, all the things that tell the story of that person's evolution in the game, and then have that put back together and turned around.
Wow.
While all that's happening, I'm still doing replays.
Yeah.
I'm still queuing up things that we might have a feature or something else that we brought in earlier. I'm listening to a director. I'm listening to a producer who's trying to build storylines where he's communicating with the talent. I'm listening to the talent's call. There are things that they'll say that I'll try to get to support what they're talking about independently of what the producer. So you're listening to a lot of voices, and you have to learn how to filter these things. It ruins you for a lot of other things too.
That's funny.
My wife complains that I cannot sit down and watch a show and pay attention to it without picking every mistake out in it.
Yeah. No, I know
makes sense.
I know how that feels like. As somebody, I was a basketball coach for 9 years, not as long as you've done this for, but like I'll watch a game and I can't help but like see a play and like want to draw it and do something with it. So I kind of understand the type of like, I can't watch something without like seeing it a certain way, you know, like, so I get it.
And there's a lot of humor that goes on too. All this, it gets stressful. Yes, people yell at each other at times. Other things happen, but there's also a lot of humor. People are kibitzing each other about stuff. People are talking smack about what's going on during the game. There's a director I work with. I got Tom Hewitt. He does the Memphis Grizzlies. Tom, he's hilarious. The guy makes cracks about everything that goes on, and the whole time he's commentating. Oh, that idiot missed a shot. What was he thinking? And he's like, take two. Get ready for three. Oh my God, what's he doing going down the lane? And you just sit there. Sometimes it's all you can do just not to break out laughing. Just. And then sometimes it gets on your nerves too. It's like, Tom, shut up. Just call the game so we can all work.
Trying to do my job here.
Yeah.
That's like us watching a sports game in the playroom by ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So on a basketball game, because we were talking about basketball, is it cutting replays? Because like you said, there's so many different things. There's layups, jump shots, whatever it may be. Is it far easier when you do golf than a basketball game? Because golf is much slower.
No, golf is a nightmare.
Is it? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
golf,
see, I would have thought it was the opposite. I would have thought it was the opposite. That's why.
Golf is so busy, it's not even funny.
Really?
There's a lot of different things that are happening in golf that people don't realize. If you're watching a show, for every live portion that's happening, you know, I don't know, Sergio is up, ready to tee off. Well, 2 or 3 other things are happening in different holes concurrently. Well, we can't do that linear. So by taking what we're doing, one of the guys will be sitting in the back, recording that hole, using a router, perhaps cutting the cameras, cutting the sound under the cameras for different mic positions, and he's doing it seamlessly so it looks like it was being done live. It's recorded.
Yeah.
We give like, you understand concept of pre-roll, you give like a 7 to 8 second pre-roll. So when they come to you, you just hit play, and as it's going back, they call it like it's live.
Right.
All the different sound effects are there. Everything's underneath. The ball's landed. You try to give as much pad on the back end to give the director time to get to his next assignment or next storyline that 2 or 3 other people are keeping him line of, and the producers tell him, go here, go here, go here.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's obviously everybody's hitting shots on every different hole, so it's like, okay, someone just made a hole in one on 2, and he may just be completely irrelevant to the golf tournament. And then you got to go find.
Well, who is it? I'm trying to think. It was just 2 weeks ago. God, what player was back-to-back eagled?
I just drove Champions Tour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think I know what you're talking about.
Was it back-to-back hole-in-ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, he eagled. No, he did.
Or is it?
He hit a hole-in-one on a par 3, and I think it was a par 4 that he on his second shot.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just crazy. So you said, so I know you worked the Masters, right?
I have.
Is that like, when you work an event of that magnitude, is it any more pressure or is it any different to you, or is it just all the same?
I don't know if I could say it's any different in terms of what you do, your job. There's a lot more eyeballs on you, and there's a lot of people. The people at Augusta National are really nice. I mean, don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. They're very, very nice people, but they're very, very serious, no nonsense people, and they are scary. I believe. You have to consider the amount of wealth that's out there,
right,
and what they have wrapped up.
That's a good point.
And all of us sitting here, right here in this room, your production guy and everything else, what any one of those people earn in 5 minutes can buy and sell us all over many times, right, and not even think about it.
Right.
So in the large scheme of things, we're nobody to them.
Right. Right.
I forgot who it was way back, but it was, at Augusta, there's no rough. It's just the first and the second cut.
Yeah, absolutely.
And someone, I don't know who it was, broadcasting, and it may even been one of the side, but they said, "Oh, that's in the rough," and they were like, "He was not." I think he was like basically just asked to leave that day.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
No, you're not going to do this anymore. But it's like it's so funny because the announcers are so careful about that. Whoever's calling is like, "Ooh, that's into the second cut there. There is no rough at Augusta. It's only the first and second cut."
They're again really nice people. I've never had a bad experience there.
Yeah.
I've been a fair amount of leeway when I've been out there working on the course, because I wasn't working for the broadcast. I was working for a little bit different situation out there, and there are some rules there you got to be very careful of. Yeah. Even though I had, because of what I was doing, had special permission to have a cell phone on the course, you have to have a special sticker.
Yeah. I
always left mine in a building. I didn't want anyone to ever have any reason to question me, because at Augusta, if you're not a member or somebody working there, patron or everybody else, they come out. If you have a cell phone on the course, you're banned for life.
Oh.
Is that?
They're that serious about it.
Ban you for life.
That's wild.
They're that serious.
And so what were you specifically doing this last time? Was it to do with the app? Because I know now on the app, on the Masters app, you can follow everybody. They cut every single shot, every replay of,
That's another company, and I'm trying to think of the name of them now. I just drew a blank on them, that manages all of that stuff.
Okay.
What I was doing in the years that I've been doing it is, there's a press conference room where everything comes out of, and I was helping with all the record and management of all that going on. So there's a huge video wall behind where you get approved photos. Those go up behind the wall. We manage the cameras, all that stuff, in audio going out from whoever's being interviewed at the same time.
Gotcha.
Plus, another kind of thing that got thrown to me was making sure that all the little bits and pieces that the membership wanted was put together for them to be able to send back and forth, because they're constantly critiquing everything that happens.
Wow.
And it doesn't, I'm trying to say it doesn't help. You have people like Mr. Healy, who's the CEO of Sky Networks, walking in and looking over you too. He's a member out there. And he's an interesting character in that I think he's a really brilliant guy, but he will never speak to you directly. He walks in, looks at something, grunts basically, leaves, and then his aide, or whatever you want to call him, Batman, walks in. He likes this number. He wants this picture, this picture, this picture. Okay. And then he'll come back in and look at those other ones again. I'm sure he's a busy guy and everything else. it's just odd that he'll never speak to you directly.
That's so weird.
It'd save time of just saying, "Hey, I want this picture, this picture, this picture."
And do you know how intimidating that is?
Yeah, right? Like, yes, no, I could imagine. That's crazy.
It's like having somebody speak to you in the third person the entire time.
Yeah.
If you could pick like one sport that would be like easiest for, right? Like easiest for you to do. What's the sport that's the easiest where you'd be like, all right, I'm in and out. This is not going to be too difficult.
Wow.
Considering golf is a nightmare, right?
Well, that's kind of, see, they all have a certain level of difficulty. I mean, college basketball is pretty simple.
Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't think I would really, really enjoy when I first started it. Okay. And, you know, as guys, we grow up watching baseball and, you know, basketball and football and everything else. Women's softball is a blast. It's fast. It's exciting when you have good teams that are grinding it out and the game moves quick. You know, you're 7 innings. Okay.
Right.
They move fast. You know, we're doing stuff like you do, like Oklahoma against Texas. They get brutal. And these girls go at each other.
My brother's going to love this take. He loves softball. All my nieces play, and he can't. He's like what you're saying. He used to be a baseball fan, and now that all of my nieces and they watch, well, he was like, I'd much rather watch Texas and Oklahoma play softball. It's quick. It moves quick. It's 7 innings. The game's over an hour and a half, and
these girls go at each other. Yeah. I'm not kidding you, man. Somebody has a dislike, they will throw at them on them.
Yeah.
I watched it was Texas Oklahoma in the national championship, right? And Oklahoma beat them 2-0, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Texas won the regular season series.
Yes.
And then Oklahoma beat them in the finals. Funny enough, my high school golf, I went to MacArthur. My high school golf coach there is married to the Texas softball great Kat Osterman. Do you remember her, the pitcher?
I do.
Yeah.
She's worked with her many times.
Yeah. And so his name's Joey Ashley, and he's a great guy, but they got married, I don't know how many years ago, but they have a kid now. But it was funny back in high school. That's back, you know, when Kat Osterman was dominating, you know, whatever. And she was still winning gold medals. And so Joey told us at golf practice, he goes, "Yeah, I used to date Kat Osterman in college." I go, "No, you didn't, Joey. You probably stalked Kat Osterman in college." And next thing you know, 5 years later, after college, I'm looking on Facebook and he goes, "Joey Ashley married Kat Osterman." And I said, "Way to go, Joey. I guess you're not a stalker."
I think what's painful about that discussion is that as a professional, I worked the game she was pitching in, and now I've worked games where she's calling the game too as color.
Got it.
That's actually a very painful thing for me because I'm dating myself now.
That's funny. Yep.
What So when you work, you said you're contracted to work, right? I'm curious how that so does anybody actually work for ESPN in a production crew, or is everybody contracted out?
Well, generally above the line is working.
Okay.
When I delineated the producers and directors.
Right.
However, some of that has changed now too, where producers and directors are. Let's see, a producer will come in. The talent is definitely working for them direct. But you have different companies now that are packaging things for them. Like ESPN's kind of stepped back a little bit. I'm trying to say this in a way that I can really illustrate it. You'll have smaller organizations that have come along that will take, say, again, a women's basketball season, like a regional thing,
right?
Texas or Oklahoma, and they'll put together that stuff. And ESPN's paid them basically turnkey to do it.
Yeah.
I think they're finding it's a lot cheaper for them to go that route. And again, it's changed some of the industry. Everybody still knows each other. You get calls from, I might get called from a packager. I might get called from a crewer for ESPN or Fox or, you know, whatever down the line.
Right.
And then packagers obviously call me too. And then you have to go out at times and kind of ring your own bell. Go, "Hey, I'm sitting out here. I'm kind of waiting."
Right. So it just varies. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really put my finger on any one thing. I mean, all I can tell you on the thing is it's an industry where you're only really as good as your last job. And I don't see a lot of younger people coming in. There are a few, but I don't think they do very well in it because it is a sink or swim. And nobody really teaches what we're doing.
Right.
You go into a university system where you go through any sort of training and everybody's focus is, well, this is how a film is done, or this is how the method is put along the line, or you shoot a commercial this way and you storyboard and you have all this stuff. Yeah, that never happens where I'm at. And it's a controlled environment. You can start and stop. You can fix a mistake, or you can do this. Whereas we don't have that luxury.
Right.
It's just coming at you as fast as it can go, and you're trying to turn it around. And it's never a mistake until it hits the air. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff that happens that nobody has any idea.
Yeah.
Is that because it's like there's a delay to fix it? Is that
No. I'll for example, I told you this past weekend I was in Palm Springs.
Right.
Actually, I was in Indio at Fantasy Springs Casino, and we were doing boxing for DAZN.
Okay.
We're in the desert. It's 106, 107 degrees out there. Our television truck dies from the air conditioning going out. We had to leave for a couple hours because everything, I think we hit like 109 or 110 inside the truck. All the equipment is failing because it just can't keep up with it. We had to turn everything down, shut it down. They brought in, 4 or 5 different AC units that are portables from outside. We finally got that thing down into the mid-90s and were able to turn stuff on. And then we had 2 hours to get all of our stuff loaded, set, up on air. Wow. And we did it. But, we had time that normally you get to look at things, spend a little bit of more preparation time, and then...
I see. Yeah.
I've been on shows where TV trucks have caught on fire.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a lot of things that have happened in years past. I've been on shows where, I won't say where it happened exactly because I don't want to goat these people. Mistakes happen.
Sure.
But it was an NBA game, and someone forgot to order a second truck for the other team. And there's a crew stand like, well, where's the truck? Oh, we forgot to order it. So they made 2 shows come out of one truck that wasn't designed for it. They made it happen.
Wow.
And I guess it kind of dovetails into something else I was going to tell you, kind of holding it back, but the people I get to work with are some of the most creative, self-starting, problem-solving individuals you've ever met in your life. Mm-hmm. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm guilty of this too. We all have egos a mile wide. Type A personalities that really only work and play well together at a stretch of about 4 or 5 hours. Then we turn on each other. And it gets really tense. I mean, on a long day, things are happening.
I'm sure.
People haven't been fed. You haven't gotten to take breaks. You barely had a chance to go to the bathroom. Something's broken. This has happened. And you're trying to build workarounds. And it gets pretty tense. And at the end of the night, people are walking away. They're mad, angry. And it's funny because then you'll find somebody in the bar later having a pint and crying on somebody's shoulder going, I'm sorry I yelled at you, man. And the next day you go back and treat each other just the same way all over again.
And just repeat over and over and over.
It is. It gets really funny. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But those people that are those kind of self-starters, those are the ones that thrive in the environment.
Mm. Well, you have to in that type of situation, right? Like, I mean, just like you said, sink or swim.
I've also noticed too, now, there might be some that disagree with me on what I'm about to tell you too, but I've noticed that the better technicians, operators, everybody across, even above line, the more they live on the edge of failure, the better they are. They're always walking that line, pushing the limits of just how far can I go before I go off the cliff. And it really is fascinating. You watch these people and they really thrive living on that edge all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody's got to pull them back a little bit because you do see it. I'm guilty of that. I'll push something and somebody will rein me back in before it gets too far over the line.
That's crazy. And so I guess I was just going to ask you this as well. Like, so working at all those different is it different to work, like, say, at ESPN versus like a Turner Sports?
There are some different philosophies that are there that are, when you're in it, you can notice a little bit more. Turner tends to be a little bit more conservative in how they present something, whereas ESPN is always looking to be really edgy.
Right.
They're looking to the next the flashy bell thing that's going. I have disagreements with that sometimes, but at the same time, they're trying to push those limits too.
Right.
They're trying to make it more exciting, and they've built their brand on that.
Right.
Turner has some really, they're really, really good people that I've worked with. They're a director that's no longer with them, Lonnie Dale, is one of my favorites of all time. Lonnie has the ability to call, he'll give shots direction, but he'll call things 4 or 5 shots out in advance. And if this contingency happens, everybody knows where they're supposed to go all the time.
Right.
Oh, well, that didn't happen. Or, okay, we're coming back. Okay, the next time this is going to happen, this happened. You go here, you go here, you go here. And 99 times out of 100, Lonnie is on it. And I don't care what happens, how much stuff is on fire, how much stuff is breaking down, who's mad at who, whatever's gone, the calmer he gets.
Wow.
And he gets to one of these things, okay, let's step back, let's do less is more. While this is getting repaired or this is getting back on track, we're going to do a simple, basic show. And he'll still keep calling it, but he never gets phased. And that's the difference between him and some of the others I worked in. Lonnie is a guy that if you make a mistake for him, you feel like you disappointed your parents.
Disappointed father.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Whereas other guys will yell at you and you're just kind of like, yeah, I hate you too.
Yeah.
But it kind of rolls off your back. And there's another guy, Emmett Longren, but these guys, when you make a mistake or you do something and you're working for them, you feel so bad you beat yourself up because they don't yell at you. You just feel like you
let them down.
Yeah, you let down your mom.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, you hang your head in shame when you walk out.
I'm not mad at you, John. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's all. You know.
Never thought you would do something.
When you hear your middle name, you know things are bad.
That's funny. Out of all and obviously you've done tons and tons of events. Who is the coolest or it doesn't have to be like the most famous, but of all the people that you've met over your years of doing this, who like surprised you the most, or was like the nicest guy out of a celebrity or someone people would know at home, you know?
Well,
you don't have to name the assholes. Just
if you want to, you can though.
If you want to name the assholes, you can. I mean, I would love that, but I just asked you the easy question.
We pushed the edge on this show.
All right, well, at the risk of ending my career. I would like to say my most favorite one, and I only got to work with him for 1 season. And it was a strange situation how it worked out, because I was doing a racing series at the time, and he was one of the owners. And I got to meet him, and I'm setting this up because if I had talked about the industry, because this is a person in film, if I talked about the industry, he wouldn't have had time for me. But because I kind of grew up as working on cars too, kind of a gearhead in school and things like that, started talking engines and suddenly hit it off really well. And I got to meet and work with Paul Newman and Newman Haas Racing, and they had a champ car team, which is kind of the bastard stepchild of IRL. I think they finally did make up and all come back together. But at that time, I think they had Bruno Junqueira and Sebastian Bourdais were driving for them. And Newman was always down in the pits. And, you know, he raced cars.
Yeah.
And you talked engines with him, he'd happy to talk all day long.
Yeah.
He'd have grease all up his arms and everything else. And you're just one of the guys. But if somebody walked up to him and said something about a film,
he's like, I don't want to talk about that.
No, I don't care about you.
Yeah, I'm talking about cars, and that was his passion, right? That's what
it really was.
most. Yeah.
And
That's wild. Wow.
Some of the guys that are fun, and I had a little bit different connection to him too, just because he went to high school here, and I had a former spouse that went to high school with him, so I knew him a little bit from that. Is Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq is hilarious.
Cole High School. Yeah.
He's hilarious.
He seems like he's really
We're
funny,
big fans of that whole show.
Yeah,
we were kind of talking about it a little bit when we were at Mark's funeral about that show in Barkley and all of that. Yeah.
You know, again, we're not going to call each other and go, hey, how are you doing? If I run into him, we'll say hello, how's the family, kind of thing, and stuff like that.
That's very cool.
But he's a very nice guy, very affable, friendly. I think he's very personable where anybody can approach him. He's happy to talk to you.
Yeah. Which is not always the case with people like that are that big.
You know, you don't want to, there's a fine line too, because you just don't want to go out there and be that guy that like annoys everybody. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah.
there's plenty of those people.
Sure.
If you see somebody like that and you're out and you just kind of, and they look at you, you kind of acknowledge waves, like, hey, how you doing kind of thing, and go back to what you're doing. You'd be surprised at how many times they'll come over to you because they're having dinner or they're having, whatever moment with a family or somebody else, and they recognize that you left them alone, and they're like, you know what, I appreciate it. How you doing?
Right.
And there are ones that won't, but at the same time, the chances that they're going to come over and say something to you and be positive about that experience are much greater.
Right. Because nowadays, not only do people come up and say they're big fans, but they're like, can I get a selfie? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it's just imagine how many people those, come up to them daily in
20
public
times,
places.
Probably every time they're eating dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
I never try to bother anybody. I don't think I've ever asked anybody for a picture, but the closest I ever was, I told him I was in the Vegas airport, and God rest his soul, Bill Walton. I was this close. I was I gotta go get a picture. I gotta go get a picture with Bill. And my mom's a flight attendant and has been for Southwest for a gazillion years, and so he's been on her flights plenty of times. She's like, "You should have. Bill Walton's the nicest guy in the world. He would have taken a picture with you."
He actually is. He was a very, very funny guy, and some of the things that came out of his mouth sometimes we were like,
"Oh yeah,
Bill, you need to tone that down a little bit."
Him and is it Dave Pash doing those two were just it was like late night comedy when you were watching about the Conference of Champions and Bill Walton would be like, we have 7 teams from the Conference of Champions going to the NCAA tournament. Dave Pash is like, that's not true, Bill. There's 2 teams. There's 2 teams that might get in. There's 2 that might get in. And if Oregon wins this tournament, they're getting. You got to be kidding me. This is all. He goes, Bill, Utah is 7-11 in conference.
Never let the facts get in the way of being a good story.
That's right.
This is the Conference of Champions, Dave. They deserve to be in.
He's our all-time favorite. That guy's.
I'll never forget where he was. He gave him Bill Walton gave Dave Pash a book of evolution or something or Darwinism, and Dave Pash goes, in the second half we'll talk the New Testament. Like, oh
that's
God,
so
those
good.
guys are funny.
Again, without naming names, but one of the things that sticks out in my mind is one of the funniest things I've ever heard on the air. We were doing a Mavericks game, and the color announcer at the time, I don't know why he said it the way he did. He says, I've had more touches on first dates than Nowitzki's had all night.
That's hilarious.
And everybody looks at each other. We're all sitting in the truck, and they're like, did he just say what I thought he just said? And then suddenly you hear the director, can you roll that back? Let's listen to that ourselves.
Oh, gosh, that's hilarious.
And not that it was like particularly racy, but still at the same time, it was kind of like, I wonder how that went over management later on.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Some of these stories are awesome. So are you still working the same amount now as you did back then, or are you less so at this point?
Well, I'd like to be working a little bit more at this point right now because there's just a weird thing that's gone on. Normally in my summers, I have, take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks off just because there's not a lot going on at the time in this market.
Yeah.
I have to travel a lot to do what I do. Whereas markets like, say Dallas or Houston, you've got baseball all summer and things happening too. I have moved a little bit away from the stick and ball sports. I'm doing more combat stuff now. More opportunity in it. But I also had some things that I thought were going to continue through this summer that didn't. People sell series, I want to say right now, I think, Bellator got sold. I don't even know who has that now. And my friend that was working that is now transitioned more into AEW. I've done a few of those. Still would like to pick up more. It's just a question of...
And the AEW's for people that don't know, it's the wrestling. Right?
Wrestling,
yes. Yeah. And who is that on? What
Turner has that.
Turner?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is about it, I hate to say it this way, I could care less about wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you look at it, when again, having the luxuries of like food, clothing, and shelter, you realize, well, that's 34, 35 weeks of show that you're working.
Yep.
And that's steady money coming in.
Yeah.
I have another colleague that got on the LIV golf tour, and so he's doing very well right now.
Oh, I bet.
I stepped away from a couple of package things just because I felt like I needed to. I wasn't from a personal standpoint, I wasn't very happy with myself. I found that I was becoming more irritable and things that were going on, and you have to find the right balance. Work life and everything else, and you have to decide that, am I going to be this person, or am I going to be? And if you don't like what you're saying, it's time to walk away.
Right.
Doesn't mean I won't ever go back. I just felt like I needed to step away.
Right.
And I think we all come to those points in life.
Absolutely. I mean, I coached for 9 years, and I got burnt out of it doing it for 9 years, and I stepped away, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just not happy doing it. But I get that. I'm just curious, when you say like packages, so does that mean when they contract you, it's for multiple games or for a season? Like, how does that work? Especially, I'm curious for all sports, but like for NBA, like, is it one game? Is it the whole season? Is it one team? How does that work?
Man, I don't even know. That's a hard one to really answer in the context that you're asking, because let's throw out. I'm going to use football as an example. So
sure.
ESPN will say we have our A game, which is the game of the week, and then the B game, and we have a crew that travels with that. So they'll put together, whatever their favorites are. The producers and directors will have the people they want to work with, and you want a consistency of people too, because there's a level of trust that goes into all these positions, and I guess we can explore some of that later, but they'll offer that out. Well, even in that situation, there'll be one-offs that somebody can't be in, or things happen. So then you might get that call to come and be the fill-in guy,
right,
to finish there. There's not a lot of package deals in terms of some of the smaller, like D2 and things like that. While they'll do those games, they pull people from all over. And if you're in a bye week on say the first 2 levels, those guys might go off and do the other stuff.
Right.
And nobody just sticks with one sport. Everybody's jumping around all the different.
Gotcha.
And you're just trying to keep your dance card full.
Right.
Yeah. You're as a freelance employee, you're trying to keep enough money coming in all the time, because your pay situation is kind of like a car salesman or something. Anybody working on commission, 30 to 45 days is when money's coming in. So if I didn't work today, I may not be hurting today, but a month, 2 months down the road, I might be.
Right.
So you have to prepare for those times too.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's like the summer. I mean, like you said, during the summer, you used to take 6 to 8 weeks off because there's just not a lot. You almost have to prepare for the summer's like the cold. The winter is coming, if you will, from that. I mean, it's
there is, but like in my situation, I generally, from the start of football season, which is mid-August, to usually about middle of June, I'm busy 3-4 days out of the week, and I'm traveling, I'm flying. I'm flying 150, 200 days a year to get to places going on. And it takes its toll on you.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, people go, you're in a glamorous job, you see this stuff. They don't recognize what it takes to get there. And I'm not just talking there's other issues with the networks and how these packages are going. You have logistics and operations. You've got to move a massive amount of people to get at the least amount of money. You have to move equipment. You have to get contract out with the television truck companies, because no networks keep those anymore. This is all turnkey stuff. So you're trying to move all of this stuff around the country, independent of your competitor, another network who's hiring those same people and moving them around. So there's a lot of conflicts that happen.
That's a lot of moving parts, that's for sure.
It is a fascinating study. I mean, you got people, their entire jobs are just sitting all day long crewing people and trying to keep all the positions filled.
Right. Just to make sure every game has enough people, has this, has a graphics coordinator, has this, has that, has replay. Like, that's just wild.
And I think a lot of times too, what has happened over the years, there's been some criticism made, people just putting bodies in seats that aren't really qualified, and that does happen. I think the hardest part for people goes, how do I get the best quality person in there for the amount of money that I'm willing to pay or that I have budgeted? Right. And you have to play that game up and down. And in my philosophy of it, I have to ask people, are you just looking for a body, or do you want an outcome? If you want an outcome, then I'm the guy you need to hire. You have to go in there with a certain amount of confidence and say, I'm the one that can give you what you desire out of this, and I can make this happen.
Absolutely.
You don't want to go in there, cocky and arrogant, which, I guess there are times that I have done that. But I don't think it was without good reason at the time either.
Right. Yeah, it's like balancing that line right there for sure.
Especially like you said, body, filling spots with bodies. It seems like these days, especially more than ever, and obviously some of them are not near as big as productions as, obviously the Masters, but with ESPN Plus and all this stuff that is streaming, like every game imaginable. Now, most of the time it seems like if it's a small level game, right, you may have one announcer there and you might have, say it's Incarnate Word, for instance. They play a lot of ESPN Plus. And, and you're watching that game, it's like, you may have one, sometimes two announcers, but as far as like a production like that, how many people are there? Do they even do replay? I mean, they do replays on that.
I think they do.
Well, that paradigm has changed.
Okay.
You've had, and what I've talked about has been more of the traditional way.
Yes.
Right.
You're having two different things that are happening now too. You have what are called remis, and they're a different type of remote where you might only have the cameras on site. Replay ops sitting back in Bristol, Connecticut.
That's crazy.
Or somewhere else, and the announcer's not even there.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're announcing it remote. And there's been a lot of issues. It's getting better, but you have a latency in audio and video.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've done stuff now where I was most recently Coyotes NHL.
Yeah.
Where they're on the road. The producer and director were sitting in Arizona, in Phoenix. And when the offices were still open there, they're calling it remote there. I'm doing replays from there, running the physical machine is on site.
Yeah.
But I'm running a remote and editing from this remote location. Right. And it gets challenging because my best analogy is like skating on ice. When you're trying to roll back video because of the latency issue in the command control, it'll slide past that point where you want it to be.
Wow.
So you have to really be careful in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they have to, when you're putting that replay up or you're putting that package up, you have to account for the fact that it's not going to be right there on time.
Right.
And you might have to wait a half a second, which is an eternity sometimes.
Yeah.
To know that it's going to hit right. And you see a lot of mistakes out of these things.
Yeah.
The other part of that shift, in an effort to obviously again to cut corners and price, they are allowing universities to do their own productions. When you're talking about these smaller things like that, those are students doing that.
Okay.
They're just taking it and putting it up on their air, on a Plus or whatever streaming.
Gotcha.
That is.
Makes sense. And then, so when you were talking about remote, I guess I was always wondering during COVID, because I saw the like TNT basketball, they were playing in empty gyms, but it's I think it was Mike Breen was like, in his like basement of his house with the the green screen, and he's calling the game with the laptop. I was like, Mike Breen here from Utah versus Memphis. I mean, were you just working remote during all that, or did you?
No, well, there was a little bit of that, but
okay.
I think that's really what forced a lot of that to happen, because that change was coming, but it also really accelerated the evolution.
That's what I
in migration over, and we're all kind of still figuring our way out in the world on that stuff. What was happening a lot during that period was people were in a bubble where everyone would get it tested and everything else, and then they'd put us into an isolated situation.
Okay.
We were, I was doing a lot of DAZN fights at the time, and they would just take over entire hotels or casinos, and we'd have the whole thing, and we weren't allowed to go out anywhere.
Wow. Once
you were in that bubble and everybody had been tested multiple times while you're in there, we kind of had a free run. The NBA did that too.
I remember that.
Right,
yeah.
right,
Everybody
right.
tested everybody, and they had to.
They were a little bit more draconian with the NBA, because I know of some situations where people came pretty close to losing their jobs. And I thought it was kind of ridiculous. Now again, I didn't exactly witness this, but it was described to me as two guys had their hotel doors open and were talking to each other from across the hallway, and they had a fit over that because
That's just
suddenly you're too close. I'm like, I mean, why not just put people in solitary confinement? I know. I never could understand the mentality behind that. But
so
yeah, it was ridiculous.
The last question on that: do you think networks are all trying to push to have you guys work remote like that to save money in the long run instead of paying for
Well, I
people's
think
travel. I mean, in an ideal world, they would have you guys work remote for most events anyway that aren't,
I think that's
huge
coming.
events.
I
Okay.
actually think that's really coming
Wow.
because I'm seeing that shift, and I don't know if I can wrap my head around it. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. You want, in my mind, you lose the immediacy of being able to be there. There's an emotion, there's a feeling that you
for
get
sure,
in your
yeah.
game, whether it be, the announcer sitting up top, probably not the right word to use, but almost a tactile feel. You have that feel of what's going on at first.
Yep.
You feel the emotion. You feed off what the crowd's doing. You feed off the emotion of the game. And you can hear that going up now. You don't get that when you're not there.
Right.
Yep.
And that even happens within, the below the line technical people like myself. We feel that. You're there.
For sure.
You see all that stuff going on. And, it's something that I did want to say to you earlier because we talked about, whether or not I like sports or things like that. And I've had a number of people ask me, well, how can you do this if you're not particularly, this diehard fan of the game and stuff? It's not that. What I really enjoy, what the part about makes me want to get up and go to work and do this job is that I like going in and creating an emotion for people at home. I want them, when they're finished watching that game, we have told that story in a way, we have used that medium to where I've left you emotionally exhausted at home. I want you engaged in it. I want you, your identity, everything to be dependent upon what happens to the outcome of that game. So when you're done, all that you remember is what a great time you had, absolutely how that game was played, how even the minutia of little things. When you have really, really good camera operators, when you have this people that are able to see things, it's one thing to see a play, okay? We all know that they have assignments. This position will always cover the game this way and go the ball. But in between, when you have a tally light on and things going on, the camera operators are your eyes. They're going to show you what's going on. And the guys that have a lot of talent get their head out of the viewfinder and they look for the emotion of the game. Who messed up? Here's the guy crying on the sidelines. It's easy to find the guy celebrating. Who's the one that was responsible for that? What's happening over here that may be affecting how somebody else is playing?
Right.
Who's injured? Okay, who's walking funny? Who has this? If you're watching a football game, I'll be watching something too independent. Who's the corner coming off? What were the last 3 plays rushed because that corner was getting inside? How did that change or affect the game? Those are off the ball. Those are things that are the minutia that's going on that when you add all that back in, whether it be edited or a replay or taking a spotlight on that later, those are the things that make it personable. That's what gives it a human approach. And when you can see the pitcher up on the mound staring down the batter and the camera is tight on his forehead and you see the beads of sweat coming up as he's staring him down, that's emotion.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see people that get wrapped up in what's happening.
Yeah.
But if you went to the game, you'd never see that.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm not
That's
saying that experience is different. It's just that you can't see it the same way we're going to show it to you.
Right.
best
Right.
seat of the games at home. I've always said
Right.
that. Sometimes I like going to events, but by the time you park and then you know, it's like Spurs games. Like I go to maybe 1 or 2
Yeah.
a year, and they're fun to go to in person. Don't get me wrong, but then it's like you get there early, you wait in traffic to park, and then you pay $12
Yeah.
for 5. You know, you spend $60 on beer, and then you go to the parking lot. And if you do stay to the end of the game and it's a good game, which you're obviously hoping for, then you're sitting in traffic an hour and a half leaving. You're just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, yeah. But
that is
That's cool.
interesting that they're moving towards the remote.
I figured they
aspect of
would be
that. I mean,
just because they like he said, obviously it's not gonna be as good of a job, but these networks, I'm sure if they can say, well, if it's 80% of the production, we're spending half the money, right?
That's what they
they're
care about,
thinking, I'm
but-
sure.
no, I hear
That's
that.
and I don't agree with that, but I mean that's obviously what they're doing. And like you said, I think during COVID, and they figured out, hey, maybe we can get away with doing it. It's sad, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's what they're trying to do.
Well, without going too deep into this aspect of it, there's a lot of the money changed over the years. You had a I have to use ESPN as the example on this because they're the most easy to follow. When people started cord cutting, see a lot of the ESPN contracts and how this all worked, I believe they were getting about $6, either $6.25 or $6.50 per subscriber on a cable network. So you had Comcast, Spectrum, whatever. Just to buy that network or have that in your home, whether you watched it or not, you were paying for it. When people started cutting cords, they started seeing that go away. So your business model was changing, and they lost a lot. And that really put a pressure on them to start figuring out how to change that.
To save cost in production areas.
Cost in production, plus you still have other costs going up because I guarantee you, the NFL never gets cheaper to get the rights. The NBA never gets cheaper to get the rights.
That was crazy.
And universities, I mean, to get carry rights, or whether you're trying to get Big 12 and the hottest football package is going to be the SEC.
Yep. And with
the numbers are astronomical that are being bid for that stuff. Well, you got to pay for it somewhere.
Right.
So if I can't sell ad sales, if I can't, make my money here on this, I got to start cutting somewhere else too.
Yeah.
And you've also seen them start releasing their high-paid talent.
Yep. That's right. ESPN last year let go of a bunch of their top-paid people, and you see, at least I see this, and I'm not. It's just like on ESPN, there's a lot of shows where it's like I don't even know who these people are. I don't know who they are. Talk shows every day. Some of the commentators on there, I'm like, it's different. They used to be like everybody was well known and they were like up top their game. It's not like that anymore.
I can't follow them.
Yeah,
it changes so much. I can't follow any of it, and I'm around it.
Yeah, you're in it.
You can be critical of it or not. It just depends. It's patently unfair to sit there and go, well, you have to do this and continue the way you are, because business is always going to change, and you have to understand there's a dynamic.
Right.
People are out to earn a living. They're out to make money. If they're not making a profit, there's no reason for them to still be there. And they have to be able to pay people and stay in business. So business dynamics are always going to change. Nothing is static.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt and overcome. I can't fault them for that. There are things I would like to see change differently, but I'm not necessarily the guy they're going to come to and go, hey, what do you think?
Right.
In the large scheme of things, I'm nobody.
Yeah, well, but the production doesn't run without you guys, and then you get to a point where you cut costs too much or make it too difficult for you guys to do your job. Then what happens? Then it's a big problem. So.
Well, it's the age-old story of you get what you pay for.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you're going to have decline in the quality of broadcast.
I think kind of what's fun too when you get to do some of the high school stuff is, they're not as polished, but you see kids playing the game that are still having fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And even in college too, although college,
it's becoming more of a business now.
It is. There's parts of that too. I was friends with Mike Leach, and his passing hit pretty hard.
You were buddies with Mike Leach?
Yeah,
we're huge fans of Mike Leach.
When he left Texas Tech, he was our color announcer for CBS College Football for like 2 years.
I didn't even know that.
And, not the main show, but the college side of it.
Right.
And one of the nicest people you ever meet, and I learned a lot from him. He had his little foibles. He always wore his gloves no matter what. He was a germaphobe. He wasn't going to touch him. Obviously, all the pirate stories and everything else. But, he was a guy that was more than happy to share his knowledge with you.
Yeah.
And, before he passed, when he was, what was he? Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, yeah.
When he came out that year before the bowl game and said he had a problem with these kids that sit out their bowl games because they're going to the NFL. Yeah, I can kind of understand some of that, but at the same time, he was absolutely right. All the rest of the guys that are on your team, they're the ones that made it possible for you to be there.
Right.
Okay. And if you're sitting out, then you should have to pay back your scholarship because you're letting these guys down. This is their last chance. They're probably never going to play another game.
Yep.
Because 2% ever make it to the NFL?
Right.
I mean, hate to say it, we have language on here.
No, you can say whatever you want.
But he was right. It's like, you're being kind of a dick.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Selfish dick.
But But he said everything that we were all thinking.
Right.
And suddenly everybody was like either really angry that he said it or going, yes, finally. and you wanted to hear some of that.
Yes.
You know, as much as he was, you know, I only got to spend a little bit of time around him. Bobby Knight was like that.
Yep.
You know, yes, he was outspoken and he pissed a lot of people off. But at the same time, it had to be said.
Yeah, I love Bobby Knight.
Unfortunately, we're losing. There's not many people like that left in America, unfortunately. Or they just take them off the air.
Which is sad.
Coach Gino with UConn.
Yeah.
I've always, you know, I always thought it'd be interesting to have dueling press conferences between him and Popovich.
That would be funny.
You just put them up and let them go at each other. Or actually, that would be fun to just sit down and edit, because I'm just wondering how many people would just die laughing looking at.
You'd break the internet on YouTube with
It
that.
probably was something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I told you one day, I know Barkley says he's retiring and stuff when Turner's done, but if there's a way to make that introduction, and probably already know each other, but I just think that Barkley is a perfect fit for Barstool Sports.
Yeah,
Portnoy should just give him 3-4 hours a day and say, you just go be you.
That's right.
Say whatever you want.
I think Portnoy told him he if he came, he'd give him whatever he wanted.
That's his like
on the
favorite
record,
guy. Yeah.
He said that. He's like, if Charles Barkley came, he goes, I'd give him whatever he wanted.
There's no chance that's not going to make money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
no. Make
Barkley being
tons.
Barkley, you know, they get upset about stuff, but you don't realize how much money there is in controversy.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
The more you can get people riled up, the more they watch. They're feeding into it. It's just human nature. People get all bent out of shape over something, then they're going to go out there and voice their opinion, whether or not that's right or wrong or whatever. They're just going to get involved in it.
Yeah.
And that's how those things make money.
No, 100%.
The more upset you can get, Stephen A. Smith is great at it.
Yeah.
It's like, but the more people that you can get like that and get them all upset, they're going to come in and when you got eyeballs on it, you're making money.
You're making money. You're selling ads. You're getting comments on YouTube, getting views. You sell more. It's just, that's what they do. Well, that's what people do.
What's the Oscar Wilde quote? The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
That's right. That's a great, that's beautiful right there. Well, we just got to keep stirring the spoon on the show then, I guess, Turner.
Yeah, we're usually pretty good. He talks a little bit too much about the WNBA for my taste, so I let it be known. He started out with the show talking about Caitlin Clark getting 19 and
I'm a big
6,
Caitlin Clark fan.
I said, he's the number one fan. I said I saw something online that said NFL Red Zone and NFL football is only 50 days away. So I said that was my favorite thing I saw this week. So I don't have to listen to any more WNBA talk. But he put a rant I made, I don't know, like a few weeks back about saying that I needed the WNBA to return to its rightful place on the sports sewer so we can all move on. And you can imagine we got some interesting comments on that one.
We got a lot of that was our most viewed video we've ever had.
You know, you should pull up. I'm certain it's still on YouTube. You can find it. Norm Macdonald had a show, and I think one of the funniest things I ever saw. They've since fixed it. Okay, they since fixed it. But he was Googling WNBA, and Google kept returning, don't you mean NBA? And he goes, WNBA highest scores. Don't you mean NBA highest scores? Google is constantly fixing its search.
That's hilarious.
I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
I miss Norm Macdonald.
God, another great we lost.
His stories are just the best.
Now, since we're on the vein of the WNBA talking about,
sure.
I am not a fan of the WNBA, not for the reasons you might think. I think women's college basketball can be phenomenal. I see great play.
Yep.
What I don't understand is why when they started the WNBA and the NBA and they started all this, they're not playing their own game. They're trying too much to be like the NBA.
100%.
I won't get into all the controversy about pay and all that kind of stuff because they do have some legitimate argument, but at the same time, the NBA didn't become the NBA overnight. Look at all the stupid stuff that they did when it was ABA and NBA trying to get people to come. I realize it's longer now, but you haven't invested the time in.
Right.
And you got to develop the fan. Oh God, that's going to get me started on a whole nother topic too. But you got to go out there and develop the sport, and don't try to play the game the same way. You don't have the same physical abilities.
Right.
Okay. The way the women play it in college, I realize it's a different philosophy of the game, but it's so much more exciting.
It's way more exciting. They're not even comparable.
That's
really.
what I told him when Caitlin Clark was at Iowa. I wasn't like a big fan or anything, but when it was the tournament and stuff, I was like, oh, these are exciting games. They're fun to watch. Like, you know, there's storyline here. But then when she went to WNBA, I was like, oh no. And then people like Dylan, and then Dylan bought his mom WNBA League Pass, so they watch all the games at the house. And I'm like,
Hold on. Not all the games, just Caitlin Clark games.
Caitlin Clark
all right,
games.
we don't watch the
But yeah, anyway, I just thought, I'm with you. I don't watch a lot of women's college basketball, but when it was the tournament, it was very entertaining to watch. There's the storyline there of Caitlin Clark versus LSU or whatever, and then
and they got more viewers in those games. They were more popular.
They had more views than the men's games.
Yeah.
Well, but when we were doing women's college basketball, and I'd be at Baylor, and Kim Mulkey was still coaching, and you see Baylor match up against OU, they hate each other.
Yeah,
they hate each other.
Yeah.
They can't stand each other, and they went after each other hard. And I mean, off the ball, off camera, elbows are being thrown. People are taking people to the floor. I mean, I want to see that.
Right.
I want to see them just going toe-to-toe against each other.
Yep.
LSU plays a game like that now.
Yep.
Mulkey's there. She was compared to the Bobby Knight of women's college basketball, which I thought was funny because she's got a temper.
She does have a temper.
She's entertaining.
She is entertaining.
She's very entertaining.
She toes the line, too. She pushes the line on what she says as well.
She's done some things I'm surprised she hadn't been thrown out of the game.
I agree with you 100%. Yes.
But at the same time, I want to see a dynamic coach like that, but they push it. You know, notwithstanding Griner there, but Odyssey Sims was a tremendous player.
Yeah.
You know, she'd put up 30 points a game by herself. It was fun to watch her, but it wasn't because they just dominated other people, too.
Yeah.
It's how they played the game.
That's exactly
And I
right.
wanted to see, again, this is my personal observations. I don't see the WNBA, any team, pushing the floor, running it hard, passing, making the extra pass, whipping the ball around on the outside. Whereas in women's college, they will do that.
Yep.
If you make that extra pass, if you're constantly spinning your opponent around, keeping their head on a swivel, someone will be open.
Yep.
And you can go inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
And it's exactly what you're saying. It's like the WNBA, you get there, and it's like they're trying to go one-on-one and be NBA isolation basketball, and you don't have the same skill level or the same physical ability that the NBA players have.
I think it comes down to, it's not a skill level, it's more of the physical difference between men and women.
Good point.
And they're not built to make certain types of moves.
Yes.
I mean, watching a woman trying to throw a ball at times, they're dynamic. They don't have the same rotation of the hips that you and I would have.
Right.
Now, is that calling it inferior? No, it's just a difference.
It's just different.
It's a difference in physical.
Yep.
It's not saying you can't learn it, but it's hard for them to do it.
Yes.
Because it's not a natural progression for them.
Right.
So, I like seeing them get out and bang like that. I wish I could remember that girl's name. I cut together a small highlight package. She was from Australia. I remember she was playing at Baylor. And in the game, the way it was going on, she only scored one basket in the entire game. But in the game, she was disrupting passing lanes, knocking things out, taking people to the floor, stealing the ball, taking charges. One of the things that blew me away, she tied up another girl, and the other girl just like whipped the ball around, and it was like watching a pit bull on a rope. This girl never let go of the ball. Her whole body just got flung around, and she dragged the other girl to the ground. So you come into the game, and she makes the shot to win the game for the three-point line. What was the difference in that game? Everything she did to make the ball turnover or force the other team into a position where they could not score.
Right.
That's an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah. For sure. It's compelling. For sure.
Those are the stories you kind of want to see. When I talk about, I want to create emotions and things like that in games, and here I am working back into that. It's easy to show the person that's scoring. It's easy to show the person that had all this great stuff. But who's the guy that made that happen? Who made the block? Who made the pass?
Yeah.
Who did this? I even talking about something I did. I still think about it because it was kind of a proud moment when I look at it. Not a lot of people mark and I say put aside charges in basketball.
Yeah.
I did one time where I flipped it around with a Spurs game. I had Manu Ginobili take 7 charges. The ball was turned over each time, and they converted off that 5 times. That's a big swing in the game.
Yep.
That is a difference maker.
Yep. Huge.
You know,
he took a charge to win a game one time.
Yeah.
He took a charge where their team made a layup. He took a charge and they won the game. It was an offensive foul with 1 second to go. Like he would do shit like that all the time.
My favorite basketball player to ever live, Manu Ginobili.
He also caught a bat in the arena. That was awesome too. So
he'd actually be a guy that I would love to see some. I'm still a pretty big University of Texas basketball fan.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, I don't follow them everywhere, but as far as teams go that I would follow,
right.
I've never understood the situation in college basketball. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, that I'm not aware of. But you got somebody like Ginobili here, or Twitter schools, although he didn't go there. But I would think that you would go out and hire some of these guys, like in the off season. Hey, come to our university for 2 weeks and put on a clinic.
Yeah.
To take a guy like that and put him out there and it's like, here's what I want you to do.
Right.
Teach my guys how to pass. Because you don't see that.
It's a great point.
That'd be the guy you would want to learn from.
Yeah, but I want you. He's just an example. I mean, there's a lot of people out there like that because I still think one of the greatest passers in the history of the game for a big man was Sabonis.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Sabonis was a magician who's like, just move the ball all over and just shoot him. It never looked like he really touched it.
Yeah.
But to have people that are able to come in and just go, you're going to run this as fast as you can, and I want how many passes going down, and I want them back on their heels the whole time.
Yeah.
And I want you to just do this and do this, and that's a conditioning at that level. And to get their minds thinking that way. I want you to build the muscle memory where you don't have to think about it.
Right.
And I don't see that being done. And that's maybe just me looking outside in. Maybe it is. And I'm just not, tied into enough because I'm moving to the next project.
Right.
But I've always thought, that would be an interesting way to approach these things.
No, it's a good point. Do you follow Texas everything or just basketball?
No, I did a lot of Longhorn Network, which is no longer.
Right, because
they
SEC,
shut down.
Right?
It's now SEC. So we're all kind of wondering what's going to happen now and things like that. And even before Longhorn Network, Fox Southwest used to cover that, and I did a lot of it through Fox.
Right.
And proximity. I did a lot of A&M and still do that. Still do a lot of Baylor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just when you're around a lot, you see different people doing different things. I think one of the coolest things, and this is going back to Texas too, when Garrido was still alive.
Oh, Augie Garrido, yeah.
That was a guy you could just sit. You could sit there and be mesmerized by everything that came out of that man's mouth.
Yeah.
There was never a time that there wasn't just gems of wisdom coming from him.
His old, and then some of his old, a lot of wisdom gems, and then a lot of profanities. He could string some profanities together like nobody's business. It's like, man, look at Augie go.
Oh, but they got his point across.
Yeah. If this were a gang fight, we would be fucking dead. We would be dead. We'd be fucking dead.
Which none of you know anything fucking about. You'd all be dead, or your ass would be kicked so bad they have to come to the hospital and tell you what happened to you.
See, and I'm hearing all of that stuff back there. And it's not making it to air, but we're hearing it and we're dying laughing. There's actually that kind of dovetails into something else that I was thinking about too on this. When we do games, and there's a difference in level of how it's covered between professional and college sports. College, we tend to be a little bit more, what's the right way to say this? Forgiving when it comes to players because they're kids and things like that. In the pros, and I wish we would do more of it because the teams, I'll use the NBA as an example.
Right.
You have two different shows going out. One is for the local market, one's for the market of the visiting team. And they're always rah-rah for their own team. They never say anything bad about their own players. Once in a while, you get somebody's done something so egregiously stupid that they'll call them out. But in my opinion, it's like, this doesn't need to be the rah-rah attaboy for that one team all the time. Yeah, we want to keep our market happy and things.
Sure.
But you're paying a guy a lot of money to not make mistakes, and when they're doing stupid stuff, I want to call it out.
Yeah.
I want to show where somebody made the mistake, and they go, well, you can't make him look bad. Absolutely we can. He made himself look bad. All I'm doing is pointing it out.
Yeah.
But the guy at home saw it. He's the one sitting on the couch cussing too.
Right.
I just think that's doing a disservice.
I agree.
You're trying to show the game as it's happening.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about beating somebody up so bad that,
Right.
But when they make mistakes, you legitimately should be able to point it out.
Instead of just completely ignoring it or taking a complete opposite stance and say, like, oh, it's great. He did that on purpose, like whatever.
Well, and the home team broadcast is everything's always going to be the other team's fault.
Yes.
How you were robbed on this.
Yes, that's right. Yes. The best is like the Celtics broadcast, like the local Celtics, where they're just like die-hard fans. It's like Sean Elliott and them on the Spurs and Bill. They'll be biased, but it's not like you listen to like the Lakers or the Celtics. They're like, oh my gosh, how dare you? Oh, this ref, it's rigging the game. Like they're just lose their minds completely. Like it's great. But
and I think people kind of come to expect that too. They realize there's a built-in bias on that stuff.
Sure.
But from where I'm sitting, when I look at it, sometimes I walk out there shaking my head, going, well, "What did we just do?" I mean, we didn't. Okay,
he's an idiot. Just call him an idiot. It's okay.
I used to get. I just drew a blank on his name. I think, and this is what blows me. Dwight Howard was a great player. Well, no, Dwight Howard was a good player who could have been great.
Sure.
Yeah.
The problem with Dwight Howard was always his mind. He had the physique to take somebody up. And the thing, he had the same problem that a couple of other guys had. David Robinson had the same kind of problem. You don't realize how big and how strong that guy is because he's so well proportioned. But he was able to just lift and power people up.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't get a call. I got fouled. He'd be too busy crying about the foul when you just get your head back in the game and get down and play the game. They put up, 4 or 6 points on you because you're too busy, crying about what just happened. Dwight, get out there and play the game. And he was great everywhere else around. It's just that his mental aspect wouldn't allow him to do that. He couldn't let something go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get out there and play.
Right. Just go play. For sure.
I've seen stupid mistakes made, and we all do stupid stuff every now and again. Just don't do it again. He did it again, and again. That's right. And he took a lot of heat for it.
Yeah. Yep.
I think right now one of the guys I really, really like in sports, and I have an affinity for him because I did so much work at Texas Tech when he was playing there, is Mahomes.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, I think, is one of the brightest guys out there. He has a good head on his shoulder, understands how the game is played, understands how to interact with his fans, knows how to stay out of trouble.
Yep.
The rest of his family, maybe not so much.
I was just about to say,
but at the same time, the guy has really bootstrapped himself up, and he's obviously paying off for Kansas City and done very well. It's rare that you find people that are able to handle that kind of success and position and everything else. I mean, look what happened to Manziel.
Right.
Come on.
Complete difference.
He was a nutcase from day one.
Yes, he was. Did you see the Untold documentary they did on him?
I have not.
It's actually really, really interesting. Very good. And it shows exactly that. Because actually, I went to Alma Heights, and so Tybee was our rival, and he was there when I was in high school. And so I remember watching him play. They actually never beat us. I didn't play football. I played basketball. But yeah, like that guy was, I would hear stories in high school of him partying, like just nutball, and then goes out to A&M and nothing changes, and yet he's just so damn talented that it's crazy. They did a good job in that documentary.
The only thing I have to say about him and why I think he was really successful at A&M is if you watched how he played the game, he played at a different rhythm than everyone else.
Right.
And when they started to figure that out, finally, it was when something about his, when I say rhythm, he was always a half beat off from what everyone else was playing at.
Right.
And they had the hardest time adjusting to him.
Yeah.
And so he was able to make a half step, move left or right when everybody thought he was moving the other way. It just took time for them to figure out what he was doing.
Right. Well, it's similar to kind of with Caitlin Clark and with other super compelling players. How they played was just so different. Like he played the game so much differently than anybody else at that time. And it's the same thing with Caitlin Clark or with Wembanyama coming in the league right now. It's a different. They're different. They're unique, and that makes it.
Everybody had, and I guess that's how I describe it. Everybody has a certain rhythm that they live their life by. When I say, I make this step, or I move this way, or I do this. And when you find somebody that's just a little bit off of that, you notice how they stand out, where other people just can't quite figure out.
That's a good point.
Where they are on the court or on the field or whatever point in time.
Right.
And when they get enough time to look at them and watch and develop the feel for what they're going to do next, that's when they're able to shut them down.
Yeah.
But if they don't get to see them very much, when they first come in, they're phenomenal.
Right.
You just, I don't know if it's they live out of time with everyone else.
Right.
Yeah, he was special at Texas A&M, that's for sure. That was before.
He was special in a lot of other ways there too, but
yeah, no kidding.
Probably get myself in trouble on this.
Right.
That's funny.
Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to that I didn't cover that you want to talk about or anything like that before we get out of here? Or did we kind of get through everything? I thought it was a great interview.
Yeah.
I mean,
and give everybody at home an insight of, what happens at all the sporting events they're watching.
There's a lot more to see when you peel back the curtain.
Oh, I bet I bet you could talk for hours about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that you were giving us the understandable version of it, I'm sure.
I don't even know if I understand it sometimes, really, because it's funny. You go in there and it's just so many things are hitting you at once, and you're trying to manage all of this stuff. Like again, the other night when I'm doing boxing,
right, and
we had those other issues that happened, but I'm getting all this stuff. So while I'm doing the replays, I'm also building the highlight for the end of the match. As soon as the match is over, I got to have that highlight about 45 to 50 seconds ready to go.
Right.
So I'm picking this stuff out, and I do other things where I live on the edge because I'm not always asked to do this, not told to do it. I think, God, I'm gonna step back from that just a little bit because I want to set it up a little bit better. Part of working in the business and working what we're doing out there, when I said earlier about learning how to filter voices, it's very important to understand that communications aren't just vertical. They're also side to side, lateral, up, down, every which way. And you're talking to different departments. I have audio over here. I have the ability to talk to every different department. I don't necessarily speak to graphics all that much because we don't have a lot of interaction. But while I'm talking to producer, talking to the director, sometimes I'm talking to audio.
Right.
Hey, I need you to drop the track on this, or hey, this is a great play. I'll say full speed track, pump the volume, announcers layout.
Right.
Producer will tell the announcers layout. We want to hear that sideline where that hit, that guy just threw a body on somebody. There's that crack.
Right.
Or basketball, I hate to do it, but sometimes you just want to hear it. Guy goes up for a layup and just gets crushed and hits the floor so hard. It sounds like a bowling ball hitting the floor. But I want that, again, that's part of that emotion of the game. You want that in there. So you're talking to all these different people, things are going on. And when I said filter voices, you need to know when it's pertinent to you and when it's not. You need to be able to know what's happening over here and concurrently to you, what other department, because everybody's specific area of expertise is dependent on everyone else.
Right.
And we all have different challenges for our positions and the immediacy of what we're doing, and you're trying to work to complement each other. And so there are times a producer doesn't ask me for something, but I'll turn back around and sell it. And if you've worked with people long enough, and directors too, they'll know that when, by the tone of your voice, I need to just sit back and this person, I have the confidence in them to let them carry our show, to let them carry what's going on. He sees or she sees what's important at this moment. This happened over here. Hey, I've got the fumble. This is the fist that punched the ball out. This happened over here. Oh, this is what happened that started the fight.
Right.
In box, a fairly recent one that I remember in a situation was doing Canelo Alvarez Saunders fight. And we were in AT&T Stadium. I want to say it was the 8th round. Things were going pretty well. Saunders is holding his own. Canelo Alvarez hits a ton. But I heard it. I had the sound punched up in the back a little bit louder on the effects. And when Canelo threw the punch, I heard the snap. And they let him keep fighting. I said, he's hurt. Such and such happened right here. I was going back. I go, oh, he broke his orbital. Sure enough, when they went to the corners after the end of the round, tight shot, his orbital on his eye was sunk in. They called the fight, but he broke his orbital. They had to take him straight to the hospital.
Wow.
Sometimes you hear it before you see it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so to know that feel, and when I called that, people weren't believing me at first. Like, no, it's right here. They're going to call the fight.
Yeah.
Turned it back around. Sure enough, that's what happened.
Wow. Crazy.
I remember that fight because I remember him going back to his corner, and you without the sound, right? Because you heard the sound. You would have thought the punch maybe hurt him a little bit, but you certainly didn't know it was ending the fight. And then he went to the corner, and then they go, no more. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And Canelo was like, he quit on the stool, whatever. And then they're like,
you heard the crack. You heard the crack. I heard the bone break.
Yeah, I was watching it somewhere, at a bar or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the volume.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But there's a lot of times a good A1 sound engineer on the show will have all that stuff mixed, and it's really nice when you have somebody that really understands how to get the surround, everything that's coming, and mix all that in. And they're back there working everything too. You might even have some shows you have a sub mixer,
right?
That's also bringing certain things in. And when you have good people like that are bringing these things in, it enhances everything that I'm doing.
Right, I bet. Yeah.
And you really have to trust. And there's a lot of times. One of the problems, well, not really a problem, I guess it is. When I talked about us all commiserating afterwards, sitting in, you're your own worst critic. And I'm telling you, we will beat ourselves up. Why did I do this? I made a mistake here. Well, I didn't hear that was a mistake. No, I made the mistake. It was my fault. I did it. Well, I never saw the mistake, or I didn't see. No, I made the mistake, and I'm beating myself up over it because the mistake that I made screwed you. You could have had that better because, again, they're all critical of it.
Right.
And you'll have camera operators come to me, and guys I've worked with for years. Did you not see that when I did this? Crap, I missed that. I didn't see that one moment.
Yeah, with a million different things going on too.
Because you have this thing with. Sorry, I know we're going longer. But
no, you're right.
You have this thing with camera operators. When I said get your head out of the viewfinder, the really, really good guys, you'll see the play, the score, basket, whatever. Then somebody will go to the hero of the shot.
Right.
Now, when you don't have a tally, you're always working because we're always recording all that other stuff and we're editing that back in. The really good guys will do their assignment, play, score, hero, whatever. As soon as that tally's off, boom, I'm here on this shot over here. I jump over, here's a tight shot of fingers on something. Here's the eyes, here's the emotion, here's this. And you're trying to grab all that stuff to edit with.
Right.
And then they're back to where they need to be. The play is going to start again. Okay, I'm over here. They work the crowd. They work everything going on. Here's the sideline coach going just furious. I mean, he's just, the line coach or the defense. I'm not even saying this right, but here's this guy going nuts. He's screaming at his guys because somebody blew the play. Hey, the handheld's down there. Quick, hit the mic that's on the handheld. Let's get the gnats. Maybe we can get him saying something.
That's crazy.
Obviously, I have to filter
that's
language.
That's what I want to hear and see as a viewer. Yeah. I'm like, oh, he's going nuts. I want to. Y'all go to him and hear that. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's what I want to hear right now.
You know who did a really good job throughout the season of that is the UFL or the old XFL. As far as what coaches are saying on the sideline and them calling in the play, because they broadcast that on a bigger delay, right? So it's like when the play.
Yes and no.
Well, I don't know about I'm just saying on TV in the sense that there's no. Maybe not a bigger delay, but I'm just saying as far as if the offense coordinator is reading the play, there's no way someone has time at home or in the deal.
No,
whatever.
You're not going to do it till after. But that was a different situation too because it was a different philosophy. I'd worked some of those games.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
And normally where you would have when I talk about ISO mics, when we isolate different people, and stuff in a router system, how that's depends on the plan and what things going on and the way it's built. Normally we have maybe one or two isolated mics if there's ones on players, but we pretty much nearly always have the referee, and then you have your sideline reporter. And a lot of stuff happens, what you would think happens linear doesn't, because while something's going on over here, the sideline reporter might be off in the corner getting an interview. And we can record that independently of what's happening live and then turn it back around and time slip it to look like it's live.
Looks like it's live.
So it's seamless. And we're doing that. And that's how you punch underneath the router. In the XFL, the way that was done, yes, we had those things going on too. You also have ISO mics on certain cameras, handhelds because they get down in places. You wouldn't have one on an up camera because it doesn't make any sense. But any camera that's going to be down doing something, you'll have a separate mic on it that's built into the mix. But I can also take it independently. So if something's happened right there and I can catch something being said, I can get it there too. We also had all of the comm lines, communications between the offensive, defensive coach, people going up and down. Normally you would, in the NFL, they would never allow you to have access to that. In the XFL, they wanted people to be involved in that. So we had 16 different audio sources that were coming on that alone. Yeah. And you had an editor that's entire job was to sit there and filter through that stuff and cut what you were seeing later.
Yeah, I think it makes for a much better product than, I know the NFL won't allow it, obviously, but if the NFL did allow it, I think I like it. I like it better, hearing what's going on
I do too.
On the sidelines.
At the risk of getting myself into trouble with something, because Turner and ESPN for NBA, you've seen Inside Tracks, or where you catch the coach on the side.
Yeah,
you have an NBA representative sitting next to you, and they're vetting everything. Yeah. Nothing is strategy. You want the rah-rah, let's go. And I understand the no strategy thing.
Yeah.
I was in a specific situation that McHale was coaching at Houston, and you had Kerr still Golden State, and they had that playoff situation.
Western Conference Finals, yeah.
I was sitting there, and I was cutting that sound. And I could not get the permission to do it, because while I like both guys and everything else, and they don't want anybody to look bad. I understand where you're coming from on some of that. But it was such a contrast in coaching.
Right.
McHale was frozen. He was sitting there. His guys were literally asking him, what do you want us to do? And he had no answer for them. I wanted to do almost like a split screen side by side, let one roll, let the other roll, come back and forth. Kerr is there. We're going to do this. You're going here. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. We're going to do this by the numbers. You go back to McHale. What do we do? I just don't know. And I didn't want to make him look bad, because I love the guy. But at the same time, that is so compelling for people to see and realize he had absolutely no answer.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think he's a great guy. He was a great player. I think he was a good coach. But it was also a bad time for him. He had the other family issues.
Yeah.
There was so much on his mind. But in that moment, it was interesting to watch someone completely unravel and be so taken out of the game by what the opposing team was done and how they were reacting, how they were adjusting to everything.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
A lot of what's going on in sports, you're always reacting to somebody else. Remember, when you control a narrative, everybody has to play to you.
Yeah.
If you control the agenda, the narrative on the field, no matter what sport it is, everyone's reacting to you.
Right.
And if you maintain that momentum, somebody has to come up with the answer.
Yeah.
It's not always apparent.
That's a good point. That's fascinating stuff. Well, thanks for coming on, John. We really appreciate
thank you very much.
It's been a phenomenal interview. And make sure, if you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. Make sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked about the episode. Hopefully, guys, you guys enjoyed it. If you're listening on audio-only platform, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Thanks again to John Walker for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.